Hi guys. You don't have to call me sir. Or perhaps you should, I don't know. Who am I? The reason I'm here, the reason I've just come to you from Jeppe is because I'm you. I wore a blazer not too different from yours for 5 years. And I'm also a father and a husband, and I want you to know that I'm probably going to make you uncomfortable today, but everything I say, and if you feel uncomfortable or if you even feel a bit angry at me, I want you to know that absolutely everything I say applies to me just as much as it does to any of you guys. I'm, as I said, also a father who cares enough about the happiness and safety of his wife and his daughters to have stayed up until 2 o'clock this morning to figure out what to say to you guys, and to get up again at 4 o'clock and drive for an hour to Durban and catch a plane and go and speak at Jeppe, and now I'm here. And I'm tired. But there are things that are more important than fatigue. This isn't a game, but I'd like to start by talking about a game. Anyone heard of Russian roulette? Okay, if you have. Simple game, you've got a revolver, 6 chambers. You open the revolver and you put a cartridge in one of the chambers and you spin the cylinder and you snap it shut. And you hold the gun to your head and you pull the trigger, and if you're lucky, you hear a click. And if you don't, boom. I have owned a gun, and anyone who's done serious shooting will tell you that the first law of gun ownership is that you treat every single gun, even if you think or you think you know it's not loaded, you treat it as loaded. So, what if I said to you that in order to come to school, or to go to work one day, or to go out on a date, or to play a soccer match this afternoon, before you can do any of that, you have to wake up in the morning and play Russian roulette. If you're wise and you have some self-preservation instincts, you'd tell me I'm crazy. Because even though on the balance of probabilities you'd probably hear a click, there's still an uncomfortably high chance that you'll get the boom. But what if I told you, hashtag, not all guns are dangerous? Would it make you feel better about playing Russian roulette in the morning? Would it change the fact that even though you know that the probability is that you're going to get a click, there's still a strong chance that you might die? Now I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable. I'd like to talk about a new game. We'll call it rape culture roulette. This game is a bit different. But the key to this game is that every woman in South Africa and in the world plays this game every single morning of their lives. And instead of 6 chambers in the cylinder, let's say they've got 100. And those 100 chambers represent all the men they'll meet throughout their day, starting with a husband or a partner, the 3 or 4 guys in the cars around her at the traffic light on the way to work, the cashier at the convenience store selling her a cup of coffee, 20 or 30 male colleagues, a couple of hundred of you guys, 15 or 20 guys in the restaurant that she goes to for lunch. Some of these 100 chambers are empty, and some of them have cartridges in them. The empty chambers represent the guys who deal with women appropriately. So let's be kind and say 60, 70, 80 of the chambers. The chambers that have cartridges in them, sadly, are the guys who aren't so good at handling women appropriately. And there's a variety of cartridges. So let's start with the hard one. First cartridge, there's a rapist. Then we've got 5 guys who just catcall the girls as they walk past. You know. Oh my goodness, here's a wife beater. Here are 20 guys who just keep silent when someone tells a rape joke. There may be half a dozen who refer to their mates as pussies when they do something that's not really manly in their view. There was an article in the Mail and Guardian just this last week. It said, a woman is not safe at home, she's not safe in the pub, she's not safe at the post office. We found that out the hard way last week. She's not safe at the club, she's not safe walking from the pub back home, she's not safe from the guns of her boyfriend who supposedly bought the guns to keep both of them safe in the first place. She may be even less safe when she's with someone she knows intimately. She's not safe when she's drinking with the men she's known all her life. So what I'm saying is, women don't have the luxury of choice. Every day, every man that every woman comes across is a potential cartridge in the revolver. And it isn't strangers, like the article says. It could be people you know intimately. So, some quick numbers. This is an important one. The Cape Rape Crisis Center says about 40% of women can expect to get raped in South Africa during the course of their lives. 4 in every 10. So if we divide this all up, I don't know if this is halves. This side looks a bit bigger, but maybe it's all of you guys. Of the women who get raped, of the rapes that happen, 8.6% get convicted. So pretty much 9 out of 10 get off free. To get back to my point, most people think that rape only happens in dark alleyways. But the Rape Crisis Center tells us that 60% of rape survivors know they're rapists. That's nearly 7 out of every 10. This isn't the guy hiding around the dark corner, guys. It's not the stranger in the nightclub. It's the men who are known by your moms and your sisters and your cousins and your girlfriends. So sure, there isn't going to be a rapist in every woman's life every day of the week. But over the course of their lives, all of the women in our lives have to wake up every day knowing that there's a possibility at some point that they'll be one of the 4 out of 10 who'll get raped. I don't find it surprising anymore that women wake up asking themselves, am I next? My daughters have asked me more than once whether I think they've got a good chance of making it through life without being one of the 4. So let's start with some of the issues here, because if you think, for example, that women can solve the problem by being careful about where they go, or being conservative about what they wear, or not drinking too much, my first response is to say, guys, we're better than that. We're not mindless animals who just can't control ourselves. Are we really that helpless that the mere sight of a bit of ankle or an exposed neck or, you know, some high heels or something, and what? We just can't help ourselves. My second response, and by the way, I don't care if a woman's walking down the street stark naked. She's still not asking to be raped. You still don't have permission to comment. You still don't have permission to touch. The respect that we give to other human beings shouldn't be conditional. So my second response is that, putting all of that aside, it doesn't seem to matter what women do. They get raped anyway. They don't have to dress sexily. They don't have to drink too much. They don't have to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Do you know how I know? Because 42% of those 4 out of 10 women who get raped are underage children. So we're talking about 11-year-old girls in their school uniforms. In some cases, we know in South Africa, we're talking about babies. And when a man is asserting his dominance, this isn't about sex. It doesn't matter what a woman wears. It doesn't matter what she looks like. Nuns get raped. Old women get raped. Babies get raped. There's a difference between women having the freedom to choose what they wear, and we men taking responsibility for the way that we respond to that. In the meantime, though, our mothers and sisters and daughters are playing rape culture roulette every day. Maybe there's some guy who's winking or licking his lips at her through the windscreen at the traffic light. Maybe it's some guy following them in a car as they walk home from the shop. It's happened to my wife more than once. Maybe it's the guy who propositions her for sex outside the toilets at the mall. It happened to my 16-year-old daughter. Middle-aged guy. Wouldn't go away. But Rebecca, being who Rebecca is, eventually asked him if he wanted to see her dick and started to make as if she was opening her pants. Loudly, publicly. Because you know what? Rapists and abusers and harassers rely on women being silent and not causing a scene. I'm going to change direction completely now and ask you to imagine you're in jail. Because to really speak to you guys, I know that it's not just enough to tell you that, women are afraid. We know from history, from the fact of reality, that for social change to happen, there has to be disruption. There has to be... Privilege doesn't give itself away. People like privilege. It's nice to be privileged. But if you can really empathize with another human being, if you can put yourself in their shoes, then you can get a glimpse of what their reality is like, what their experience of life really is. So you're the new kid in jail. Maybe you've been busted for a nice white-collar crime like cheating on your taxes or defrauding a business partner. But that's not the only kind of prisoner in the jail. There's also the 6'5" gorilla with 150 kilos of pure muscle. I need you to understand that in that world, you are being viewed as someone's potential bitch, someone's potential piece of ass. And that guy is twice your size, and he's 10 times as tough. You have no power whatsoever to do anything about it if he corners you in your cell and he decides today's the day, buddy. I'm very conscious standing up here that I'm a man. Perhaps the question's occurred to some of you. I need you to know that I've done my best to be humble in all of this, and I hope that you can see my heart when I talk about my wife and my girls. But I went out onto social media a couple of days ago and asked women in my contacts, my networks, to tell me what they would say to 1,000 boys. Well, I don't know how many there are here, maybe 500 or so, I don't know. If they had the opportunity to say something to you or ask something of you, what would it be? And I'd thought of this prison example before, but a couple of women came back with this. They need to understand that in this system, he needs to understand that he would have no say in how it works. No control or influence over the people who have power over him, who are often corrupt, not fair in their dealings. Being at the mercy of the very real threat of both physical and sexual violence all day, every day. The fact that nowhere and no one is actually safe. And I can't blame him. I mean, at a rate of 4 out of 10, I'd be assuming anyone's a bad guy until I know otherwise. Here's another. The sexist jokes, the locker room talk, these are not harmless talk. Imagine a scenario where you're in prison from pretty much any movie or TV show you can think of. And imagine that you're now the subject of that locker room talk. We live in a world, guys, where the most powerful nation in the world, arguably, perhaps still mostly, is run by a president, grab him by the pussy. So the bottom line is, how would you feel if the hairy gorilla in cell block D was looking at you? Maybe licking his lips a little. The message, if you haven't got it yet, is that you shouldn't be saying or doing anything to women that you wouldn't like the hairy gorilla from cell block D to be saying to you in prison. We need to talk about consent. Because in the light of the prison example, I hope you understand why consent is now an issue. It's funny how consent is more of an issue when things are being done to us than when we are the ones doing the things. I am you guys. I've worn the blazer. Not this one, but one like it. I know the talk. Sometimes I've been silent too. Like I said to you, I'm not innocent in this. But I've been looking inside myself. But we have to face it, guys. When you're going at the girl that's walking past you, the kind of pussy you're referring to is not a cat. And when the hairy gorilla is looking at you, how would you feel if the equivalent happened and he crowed like a rooster because he was interested in your cock? I got another input from, the problem in putting this speech together was I had far too many comments from far too many women. It's overwhelming, and it's been an emotional process for me. And she said, a guy I once knew groped a friend of mine in a bar and couldn't at all understand why she had a problem with him touching her boobs. After all, he's a guy, she's a girl, it's pleasurable, we're just having fun, right? We're all a bit drunk. So she asked him how he'd feel if a gay guy walked into the bar and grabbed him by his crotch. And suddenly, amazingly, he understood. So about rape culture then, seeing as we're talking about rape culture, roulette. What harm can a rape joke do, right? Or a catcall? Well, guys, when the person making the joke or catcalling you is someone who's physically stronger than you and has the power to act on it, and you have no ability to do anything about it, suddenly the reality becomes a lot more real. Rape culture is not, I repeat, not about saying that all men are rapists. It's about saying that we live in a society where the attitudes and the norms and the kind of conversation perpetuates attitudes towards women that form the foundation for those more serious things. So sure, catcalling isn't the same as rape. An uncalled for comment about the way she looks isn't the same as rape. Talking over her at the party or in the business meeting, ignoring her opinions, about where to go out for the date, it's not the same as rape, but we are contributing to a culture where in a million ways, in a million places, at a million times, women are being told they're inferior, they're less important, often they're possessions. We're talking about disrespect, and I understand from Mr. Searle that that's a value here. So here's the key to today's message for you. Not all disrespectful actions end in rape, but every single rape starts with disrespect. Women live in precisely the kind of world that the prison would be to you. The kind of world where half the population is superior to you in terms of physical strength. And where that half of the population has grown up in a society that tells them that women are lesser and that they're possessions. And that half of the society is sexually attracted to you. Sees you as a way of fulfilling their urges. Not all of them, but if you think that the thing about possession is an exaggeration, I have a question for you. Why is it that girls in public spaces, in social spaces, when they're attracting attention of a guy they don't like, pretend that their best male friend is their boyfriend? Why is it necessary for girls or women who are attracting unnecessary attention to say to the guy who's paying them the attention that, hey, I've got a boyfriend or I've got a husband? Why is it not enough for them to just say no? In that little transaction, in that little conversation, I've got to tell you guys that in this reality we live in, with 4 women out of 10 getting raped in South Africa during the course of their lives, women owe us men absolutely nothing. They don't owe us a conversation. They don't owe us a telephone number. They don't owe us politeness. Because if I was in the group that potentially formed part of the 4 out of 10, I'd be avoiding the guys too. To get back to consent, if you are lucky enough and the conversation goes well and you end up with a girl one day, I need you to understand clearly that consent is temporary and it can be revoked at any time. I don't care if you're lying naked next to the girl in the bed. If she says no and you carry on, it's rape. Here's another controversial one for you. Feminism. And I know, guys, right? Feminazis. I roll. They just want to stand on men. They just hate men. Man haters. I've got to tell you that every single man should be a feminist. I'm a feminist. And that the women, and I don't deny that pretty much anything can be taken to an extreme, and I'm sure there are women who just hate men, and I'm not sure that I'd always blame them, but perhaps as a rule it shouldn't form the policy for society. But they're a tiny minority. I talk to a lot of feminists. And yet somehow that tiny minority is this convenient excuse that we use to just dismiss the idea. And the basic idea of feminism has always been and remains that women should enjoy equality. There are people who've added to it. But if you believe that women should have equal rights, should be treated equally, you're already a feminist, by definition. Feminism is an essential part of being a decent human being. So the way that this all started was, I posted something on Facebook. And this is what I posted. Men, are you part of the problem? If your pride is more important to you than women fearing for their lives because of how common rape and murder are, you're part of the problem. If being offended by hashtags or other generalizations and responding with "not all men" is more important to you than addressing the reasons why those hashtags have even come into being, you're part of the problem. If you're so fragile that you expect women to be nice about asking men to stop killing and raping their sisters, you're part of the problem. If you're not spending time reflecting on how you're privileged, because you don't have to worry about half the planet's population being a potential threat to you when you walk through the car park at night, you're part of the problem. If you say or do things to women that you wouldn't want the hairy gorilla in cell block D saying to you in prison, you're part of the problem. If you're not making an effort to understand consent and that women are equal to men in moral value and legal rights, you're part of the problem. If you call girls or women sluts for doing things that your mates would call you a stud for, you're part of the problem. If your response to women being groped, catcalled, or receiving other unwanted sexual attention is that boys will be boys, man, you're part of a problem. If you ask what a woman was wearing, how much she drank, or why she was where she was after she got raped, you're part of the problem. And if your expectation is that women should educate you, and that women should be speaking out to save themselves, when the fact is they've been trying to do that for century after century, and in doing so, getting raped and beaten and killed for it, you're part of the problem. In a world where 4 out of 10 women get raped, or a country where only 8.6% of rapes are convicted, where 42% of rapes are on children, I have to tell you guys that doing nothing is the same as doing something, and you're part of the problem. John F. Kennedy used a quote, and it's been attributed to a guy called Alexander Burke, but no one really knows who said it originally. But it's a simple quote. It says, "All that's necessary for evil to thrive is that good men do nothing." When the norm in society is that 4 out of 10 women are getting raped, I don't feel unreasonable in saying to you guys that there's a problem here. There's some filth in our society that we have to clean up. If we're not being proactive about cleaning up that filth, and worse, if we're remaining silent while other people are actually promoting that filth, then we're actually guilty, we're complicit. In some small way. It doesn't make you a rapist, but you are part of the problem. So what can you do? Well, for starters, you can make sure that you're not the one catcalling, you're not the one groping. And I hope I don't have to say this. If I have to explain to you why, come and see me afterwards, but you shouldn't be the one raping or murdering. It's weird how in a country where 4 out of 10 women get raped, every single woman knows another woman who's been raped. Every single man who cares enough to ask the question knows a woman who's been raped. I know several. But how many of us know a rapist? Weird. We've got to grow up. We've got to stand up. And we've got to speak up. Sexism is ingrained even into Western society. We have to fight for equality. Not because a woman is somebody's sister, somebody's husband, somebody's wife, somebody's mother. It doesn't matter whose relation a woman is. She's a human being, and women are not defined, and their value is not determined by the fact that they're married to men or related to men. So do something if you do it, because women are also humans. They deserve the right to the same basic freedoms and safety that you've probably never, if you're a guy, had to give a second thought. And I'll mention here that male rape is a thing too, and it has to be addressed. I'm not going to pretend that it isn't. But we're talking about this now, and the vast majority of rapes are on women, and even rapes on men are overwhelmingly perpetrated by other men. So if there ever was a moment where you had to question or worry about your freedom and your safety the same way that women do, it was probably because it was another man threatening to take it away from you. The bottom line is, a world where women can be free and live free of fear is a better world for you too. Thanks, guys. So, I'm not running away now. I'm sure some of you guys have thoughts. Maybe some of the stuff worries you. Maybe you think some of it's unfair. Maybe you think it's fantastic. I don't know. But I'm open to questions, and I think I'm going to take the mic out of here. And if you have a question, maybe stick up your hand and I'll come to you and you can speak into the mic so everyone can hear. And then I'll address it. And I'm going to say up front, I